Hello, 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 and welcome, welcome, welcome. You are in the tree hive in the sky with me, your happiness navigator, pollinator of positivity, shape-shifting woman wizard. Yes, that's me, Melissa Mojo B. Also a trained Reiki master and sending broadcasting magic with that intention and that Reiki, which is the cosmic rainbow energy that we are all made up of. And clearly we just had Dharma, the Reiki master cat, jump right on in here because, you know, wherever the energy is, that's where Dharma would like to be too. So hello from Dharma and I here at the tree hive in the sky overlooking beautiful Lake Ontario. And we are sending out that Reiki and magic intention for peace, prosperity, and protection for thee and thine loved ones now and evermore. We're going to have just a nice little read tonight. We've been reading Hinds' Feet in High Places from different places, from here with Dharma once, from the airport on our way to Scotland once, from Scotland. We also had a chapter or a part, and we're back to Canada already. We were intending on reading more in the high places, but we were having such fun with the fairies and the unicorns in Scotland that we just didn't make any more live readings while we were up in the Highlands and such. As I say, we were having fun playing with the fairies in Fairy Glen, Isle of Skye, all around Glencoe. We went to Kintyre. We were, of course, in the beautiful old city, the old town in Edinburgh. And we spent Samhain or Samhain, as it's actually pronounced, or All Hallows Eve there. So we're bringing back all this wonderful energy from Scotland, and we're back to the tree hive in the sky here in Canada. And we're just going to get into a little read here of Hinds' Feet in High Places. And yeah, as always, the broadcasts here are charged with Reiki, and we'll just give a little blast for whatever you're drinking. Water is one of the best things that we can drink, and it takes the structure of energies that we're giving it, so we can give it energy and change the structure of it by saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. Yes, indeed. Yeah, and thank you, thank you, thank you. Gratitude magic is one of the best as well. So Dharma's going to keep us company here. She's going to try to slip off my lap. And so we'll try to get her comfortable because, you know, on the stool is just not the best for the cat, but she's going to be here anyways, so we'll just deal with that. I'll put on my glasses and we'll get to doing a little reading for you tonight or whenever this finds you. So we have been reading about Hinds' Feet in High Places, and it's talking about a shepherdess that has thought that she's not good enough and she has some shame and fear, and the shepherd wants her to be able to go up to the high parts of the mountain, and she's just really unsure that she can be brave enough. So we're going to keep reading from chapter 2 here. It is the fearing invasion, and this is from Hinds' Feet in High Places. So, much afraid, woke early the next morning, and all her fears were gone. Her first thought was, probably sometime today I am to start for the high places with the shepherd. This so excited her that she could hardly eat her breakfast. And as she began making arrangements for her departure, she could not help singing. It seemed to her that ever since the seed of love had been planted in her heart, songs of joy were welling up in her innermost being. And the songs which best expressed this new happiness and thankfulness were from the old book which the shepherds so loved to use as they worked among the flocks and led them to the pastures. As she carried out the simple arrangements the shepherd had told her to make, she sang another of these songs. Now when the king at table sits, my spikenard smelleth sweet, and myrrh and camphire from my store I pour upon his feet. My thankful love must be displayed. He loved and wooed a beggar maid. Ye daughters of Jerusalem, I'm black to look upon, as goatskin tents, but also as the tent of Solomon. Without I bear the marks of sin, but love's adorning is within. Despise me not that I am black. The sun hath burned my face. My mother's children hated me and drove me from my place. In their vineyards I toiled and wept, but mine own vineyard have not kept. I am not fair save to the king, though fair my royal dress. His kingly grace is lavished on my need and worthiness. My blemishes he will not see, but loves the beauty that shall be. From time to time, as she went about her work with her heart fluttered, half with excitement, half with dread of the unknown, but whenever she remembered the thorn in her heart, she tingled from head to foot with the same mysterious sweetness. Love was for her, too, even for her, crippled little Much Afraid. When she reached the high places, she was to lose her humiliating disfigurements and be made beautiful. And when the plant in her heart was ready to bloom, she was to be loved in return. Even as she thought this, doubt mingled with the sweetness. Surely it could not possibly be true. Just a beautiful dream, but not reality. Oh, I am afraid it won't ever happen, she would say to herself. And then when she thought of the shepherd, her heart quickened again, and she would run to the door or window to see if he was coming to call her. The morning wore on, and still he had not come, but just after midday something else came. An invasion by her terrible relatives. All of a sudden, before she realized what was happening, they were upon her. There was a tramping of feet and a clamor of voices, and then she was surrounded by a whole army of aunts and uncles and cousins. Craven, however, was not with them. The family, hearing of his reception the evening before, and realizing that she shrank from him with particular dread and terror, had decided that it would be wise not to take him with them. They were determined to overrule Much Afraid's objections to the marriage, and, if possible, get her out of the cottage and into one of their dwelling places. Their plan was to make a bold attack while she would be alone in the cottage and the shepherd would be far away with his flocks. Let's remember to take a drink of our water. Our energy-charged water, because we say, I love you, I love you, I love you, and thank you, thank you, thank you. Dharma, Dharma, Dharma. You want to be seen, but you're just kind of out of frame, huh? Can't back up anymore, Dharma. Dharma loves the camera. Anyway, so where were we? Yes, the Craven Fear family has come back to try to convince our little Much Afraid to dwell in their dwellings. Their plan was to make a bold attack while she would be alone in the cottage and the shepherd far away with his flocks, so they hoped she would be at their mercy. She could not be forcibly abducted in broad daylight. There were too many of the shepherd's servants in the village who would instantly come to her assistance. However, they knew Much Afraid's timidity and weakness, and they believed that if there were enough of them present, that they could cow her into consenting to go with them to the mansion of old Lord Fearing, and then they would have her in their power. The old lord himself was actually with them, assuring her in a fatherly tone of voice that they had come with the kindest and friendliest of intentions. He understood that she had some objections to the proposed marriage, and he wanted her to have the opportunity of quietly talking them over, to see if he could set them at rest. It seemed to him that it was a suitable and attractive match in every way, and that there must be some extraordinary misconception in her mind to which a little understanding talk together would set right. If not, he assured her kindly that he would not permit her to be married against her will. Oh, kitty, kitty, kitty. You're very heavy. and uncomfortable on this particular stool. Next time we'll have to sit in the lounge chair. So anyways, Dharma's going to take a little roam, and we're going to just keep reading. So they were determined to overrule Much Afraid's objections to the marriage, and, if possible, to get her out of that cottage and into their own dwelling places. Let's not forget about that. They would like her to dwell with the Fearings. And good old Lord Fearing here, saying that he just didn't understand why that would not be the perfect match. He thinks that she should just stay there as well. So this Lord of the Fearings has come with the family to convince her that she should really just stay where she's at. When he'd finished, a babble of other fearing voices broke in, reasoning with her and making all sorts of suggestions. The fact was, they told her, that she had cut herself off from her relatives for so long, it was now quite apparent that she had all kinds of strange notions about their feelings and intentions towards her. It was really only right that she should now spend a little time with them, and thus give them the opportunity of proving that she had misjudged and misunderstood them. Craven might not be as handsome and pleasing in appearance as a prince in a fairy tale, and it was true that he had, unfortunately, rather a rough manner, but that was because he had known nothing of the softening and refining influences of marriage. Certainly the responsibilities and joys of married life would quickly after this, and would indeed affect a transformation in him. It was meant to be her delightful privilege to assist as principal mover in bringing about this reformation, which they all so eagerly wished to see. The whole gang talked on, and poor Much Afraid sat cowering in their midst, almost too afraid and too dazed to know what they were saying and suggesting. Just as they'd hoped, they were gradually bringing her to that state of bewilderment and incoherent fear. It looked as though they would soon be able to persuade her that it was her duty to attempt the impossible task of trying to convert Craven Fear into something less objectionable than he really was. Suddenly there came an interruption from without. The Fearings had carefully closed the door when they entered the cottage, and even contrived to bolt it, so that Much Afraid could not escape. Now came the distant song of a man's voice, raised in song, singing one of the songs from the old book which Much Afraid knew and loved so well. Then the singer himself came in view, slowly passing along the lane. It was the chief shepherd, already leading his flock to the watering place. The words floated in through the open window, accompanied by the soft bleating of the sheep and the scuffling of many little dusty feet as they pattered after him. It seemed as though all other sounds were hushed to stillness on that quiet summer afternoon as the shepherd sang while passing the little cottage. Inside, the clamor of voices had ceased instantly and was succeeded by a silence which could be felt. This is what he sang. The voice of my beloved, through all my heart it thrills. He leaps upon the mountains and skips upon the hills. For like a roe or young hart, so swift and strong is he, he looketh through my window and becketh unto me. Rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away with me. Gone are the snows of winter, the rains no more we see. The flowers are appearing, the little birds all sing, the turtle dove is calling through all the land, 'tis spring. The shoots are on the grapevines, the figs are on the tree. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away with me. Why is my dove still hiding when all things else rejoice? O let me see thee, fair one, O let me hear thy voice. As she sat listening in the cottage, Much Afraid, knew with a pang of agonizing pain that the shepherd was calling her to go with him to the mountains. This was the secret signal that he had promised, and he had said that she must be ready to leave instantly, the moment that she'd heard it. So now that here she was, locked inside her own cottage, beleaguered by her terrible fears and unable to respond in any way to his call or even give any sign of her need. There was one moment, indeed, when the song first started and everyone was startled into silence, when she might have called to him to come and help her. She did not realize that the Fearings were holding their breath lest she did call, and had she done so, they would have fled helter-skelter through the door. However, she was too stunned with fear to seize the opportunity, and then it was too late. The next moment she felt Coward's heavy hand laid tightly over her mouth. Then other hands gripped her firmly and held her in the chair. So the shepherd slowly passed the cottage, showing himself at the window and singing the signal song, but receiving no response of any kind. When he had passed and the words of the song and the bleating of the sheep had died away in the distance, it was found that Much Afraid had fainted. Her cousin Coward's gagging hands had half choked her. Her relatives would clearly have liked to seize this opportunity and carry her off while she was unconscious. But as this was the hour when everybody was returning from work, it was too dangerous. The Fearings decided, therefore, that they would remain in the cottage until darkness fell, then gag Much Afraid and carry her off unperceived. When this plan had been decided upon, they laid her upon the bed to recover as best she might, while some of the aunts and cousins went out to the kitchen to see what provisions for refreshing themselves might be plundered. The men sat smoking in the sitting room, and Gloomy was left to guard the half-conscious victim in the bedroom. Gradually, our Much Afraid regained her senses, and as she realized her position, she nearly fainted again with horror. She dared not cry out for help, for all her neighbors would be away at their work. But were they? No, it was later than she had thought, for suddenly she heard the voice of Mrs. Valiant, her neighbor in the cottage next door. At the sound, Much Afraid braced herself for one last desperate bid for escape. Gloomy was quite unprepared for such a noise, and before she realized what was happening, Much Afraid sprang from the bed and shouted through the window as loudly as fear permitted, "Valiant! Valiant! Come help me! Come, quickly, help!" At the sound of her first cry, Mrs. Valiant looked across the garden and caught a glimpse of Much Afraid's white, terrified face at the window, and of her hand beckoning entreatingly. The next moment, the face was jerked away from view and the curtain suddenly drawn across the window. That was enough for Mrs. Valiant, whose name described her exactly. She hurried straight across to her neighbor's cottage and tried the door. But finding it locked, she looked in through a window and saw the room full of Much Afraid's relatives. Mrs. Valiant was not the sort of person to be the least intimidated by what she called a pack of idle fears. Thrusting her face right through the window, she cried in a threatening voice, "Out of this house you go this minute, every one of you. If you have not left in 3 seconds, I shall call the chief shepherd. This cottage belongs to him, and won't you catch it if he finds you here." The effect of her words was magical. The door was unbolted and thrown open, and the Fearings poured out pell-mell, tumbling over one another in their haste to get away. Mrs. Valiant smiled grimly as she watched their ignominious, that's a good one, flight. Some people say I'm wordy. When the last one had scuttled away, she went into the cottage to Much Afraid, who seemed quite overcome with fear and distress. Little by little, she learnt of the story of those hours of torment and the plan to kidnap the poor victim after darkness fell. Mrs. Valiant hardly knew herself what it was to feel fear. She's valiant after all. And she had just routed the whole gang of fearlings single-handed. She felt much inclined to adopt a bracing attitude and to chide the silly girl for not standing up to her relatives at once, boldly repulsing them before they got into their clutches. But she looked at the white face and terrified eyes and saw the quaking body of poor Much Afraid and checked herself. What is the use of saying it? She can't act upon it, poor thing. She is one of them herself and has got fearing in the blood. And when the enemy is within you, it's a poor lookout. I think no one but the shepherd himself can really help her. She reflected. So instead of an admonition, she patted the trembling girl and said with all the kindness of her motherly heart, "Now, my dear, while you are getting over your fright, I'll just pop into the kitchen and make a good cup of tea for us both, and you'll feel better at once. My, if they haven't been in here and just put the kettle on for us," she added as she opened the kitchen door and found the cloth already on the table and the preparations for the plundered meal which the unwanted visitors had so hastily abandoned. "What a pack of harpies," she muttered angrily to herself, then smiled complacently as she remembered how they had fled before her. By the time they had drunk their tea and Mrs. Valiant had energetically cleared away the last traces of the unwelcome invaders, Much Afraid had nearly recovered her composure. Darkness had long since fallen, and now it was much too late for her to go to the pool and keep tryst with the shepherd and explain why she had not responded to his call. She would have to wait for the morning light. So, at Mrs. Valiant's suggestion, she was feeling utterly exhausted. She went straight to bed. Her neighbor saw her safely tucked up and kissed her warmly and reassuringly. Indeed, she offered to sleep in the cottage herself that night, but Much Afraid, knowing that she had a family waiting for her at home, refused the kind offer of Mrs. Valiant. However, before leaving, Mrs. Valiant placed a bell beside her bed and assured her that if anything alarmed her in the night, she had only to ring the bell, and the whole Valiant family would be over instantly to assist her. Then she went away, and Much Afraid was left alone in the cottage. Ooh. So number 3 is called Flight in the Night, and we'll get to that next time, dear ones. Thanks for buzzing into the hive tonight, and I'll see you soon.